Welcome to our most anticipated video of the year. You've been asking and we've been sharing a few sneak peeks on our socials, but without further delay, finally, here is the full tutorial on how to make a chunky knit blanket. Step 1, get your materials together.
All right, everybody, I'm going to go over how to make a beautiful hand knit chunky blanket like the one I have right here. This one here is so smooshy and soft. I love it so much. So I'm going to go over some of the materials you're going to need to gather. The first thing you're going to need to get is some balls of Bernat Blanket Big. The reason why I love this stuff is because of the size of it. It's a nice, thick, soft, chunky yarn. It's big enough to use for your hands, and you're gonna want to use this for any kind of hand knit, chunky, any kind of project in the future. The other thing you're gonna need to get is some thread. So upholstery thread is the kind that I like to use, but you can also use any kind of thread as long as it matches the color of the yarn that you selected. You're also gonna wanna grab a pair of scissors and just have them nearby. And and we can go ahead and start how we're gonna make a chunky knit blanket.
Step 2, how to make a slip knot.
All right, everybody, so now that you've got your Bernat Blanket Big, let's talk about the first step on how to start any kind of chunky knit project. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna start your ball of yarn. So the thing to look for when I look at a ball of yarn is you're gonna look on either side, and you'll notice right here, see how there's this little guy stuck in the butt end of the yarn? You're gonna pull that out, and what that is it's actually an indication that you should put your hand in there, fish around, and you're gonna find the end of the yarn right here. See how that's the end right there? Ideally, you wanna pull from the center of a ball because the ball will sit nice and still for you when you use it. So that's how we open and start a ball of yarn. So what I want you to do is pull out some of the yarn so that you have a bit of yarn that's loose in front of you like this. I want you to always keep the yarn ahead of you like this at all times and always keep some loose. The first step that you're gonna do for this project is you're gonna bring the yarn towards yourself. You're gonna make a backwards L. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a slip knot. All we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this yarn towards ourselves to make a little bit of a curl. And you're gonna take your hand from the top, you're gonna put it through, grab the working yarn, pull it through that hole, and you're gonna pull both strings at the same time, and that creates a slip knot. And the reason it's called a slip knot is because you can pull it on either side and it pops itself out. So I'll show you that one more time. You're gonna make a backwards L, you're gonna have that yarn ahead of you, backwards L, twist the yarn towards yourself, put your hand through, pull it through, pull both sides at the same time and create a little slip knot.
Step 3, let's make the first row.
Okay, so now that you have your slip knot, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you are selecting the size that you're going to be going with for your first chain. Now what you should be aiming for is the size of about 3 fingers. You don't want it any bigger than this and you don't want it any smaller than that. You want your chain to be about this size. So see how I have 3 fingers in there and it's not coming off? That's what you want. So I have my slip knot made, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a chain of 24. And all I'm doing is I'm taking my hand from above, I'm grabbing my working yarn and I'm slowly pulling it through, really gently. So I'm not pulling on it, putting my hand through the top, and I'm pulling it through. And as I'm pulling each loop through, I'm moving my other hand along the bottom and I'm holding the last stitch that I just made. And what it's doing is starting to create a bit of a braid. And you can see it starting here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm on my 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 24. Okay, so I have here a chain of 24. And the way that I know that I have 24 is I'm gonna count my stitches. The way that you count your stitches, you can see these bumps at the bottom of your chain. That's how you count your stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So create your chain of 24 and then come back. Like that.
Step 4, dragon bumps.
Okay, so now that you have your 24 chain, I want you to go ahead and you're gonna flip it upside down. And I know that sounds really strange, but this is what we're gonna do. You're just gonna trust me on this one. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go and identify the center bump of each of your stitches. And what I like to call these is my little dragon bumps. So you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna fluff them all up. Don't forget your first one. So you're gonna fluff up the middle part of each of these stitches so that you can actually see each individual stitch and you don't forget any of your stitches when you go ahead and start building your blanket. And don't worry about this guy here. He's actually the first stitch for your next row. So make sure you have your dragon bumps identified, and then you can also go ahead and count them and make sure that you still have the same number you started with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So that's what you want to start with. So go ahead and find your little dragon bumps, get them all fluffed up, and then we'll go into the next step.
Step 5, bunny ears.
Okay, so now you've got all your dragon bumps ready. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start building our blanket. So once again, you're gonna make sure you have yarn that's loosened up in front of you. So you can loosen up some of your yarn, have it ready. And you're also gonna notice you're always gonna have the yarn moving in the direction that you are creating your stitches. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start making little bunny ears, is what I like to call them. Here's our first one. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hand, you're gonna put it through that little dragon bump, and you're gonna pull up a little bunny ear. Now the key to this is making sure you keep your size consistent. You can see how these match in size. And these are all gonna be about the size of 2 fingers now. You don't wanna continue with the 3-fingered size. You wanna make sure it's 2. So again, you're gonna put your hand through and you're gonna pull up each stitch. So each little individual bunny ear, I want you to pull it through each individual one. This may take a minute to go through and kind of get the feel for it, but you're gonna make sure you're pulling up a loop of yarn through each dragon bump that you made. And you're gonna move along all the way to your very first one. When you get to the end, I want you to stop and I want you to count and make sure you still have your stitch count. Mine is 24. So when I'm done, I'm gonna go back and count and make sure I still have 24. So I'm just gonna move over and I'm gonna keep going to the end. And I'm also making sure that my stitches are, look how small they're getting, that they're staying consistent in size as much as possible. And don't worry, you will get the feel for it. Eventually it'll just kind of feel natural to get the right size and get it consistently. But with these blankets, being consistent in your size is very important. It will make your blanket look really nice in the end. So again, I'm going through every dragon bump. I'm pulling the yarn through. You can also use your fingers. So sometimes I like to put my finger in the last hole so that I don't pull my previous stitch out. And I'll move my hand over like this. And that's just a little trick you can use if you want, or you can just continue on the way that we were doing it. So you're just putting the yarn through each of these little dragon bumps. And now I'm almost at the end. I think I have 2 more stitches. 1, 2. So don't forget that last stitch. It might be a little bit tight, but you do need to make sure you get through that last stitch, or you will notice your stitch count will be off. So yours should look something like this. I want you to go ahead and make sure all your bunny ears are all facing the same direction, which is up. Make sure none of them are twisted. So you can see all my first row of bunny ears are like this. So you can go ahead and I want you to count and make sure you still have the same number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So my stitch count is 24. I still have 24 bunny ears. So I want you to make sure you've done that first row and then come back and we'll go over the next instructions.
Step 6, Build rows.
Okay, so you've made your very first row of bunny ears. So now what we're going to start doing is we're actually going to start building our blanket. So again, you're going to make sure you always have loose yarn in front of you. You're going to go ahead and pull some out. Make sure it's always loose and it's always moving in the direction that you're going. All we're doing now is we're going to build stitches on each of these bunny ears, and we're going to be moving in this way, and then we're going to get to the end and we're going to move that way, and we're just going to repeat this process until we've finished our first ball of yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. So all you're doing is you're doing the same movement as before. You're going through your bunny ear and you're putting the yarn through, and you're maintaining your size of 2 fingers. And I'm just going to move to my next one, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to pull it through each of them. And what I do is I like to keep my stitches close, so I will hold 2 stitches together and pull the loop through, maintaining that same size. So I'm just going to go through this full row. And what I'm also going to recommend you, once you get through this first row, I want you to again go ahead and make sure you're counting your stitches. Make sure you still have whatever stitch count you started with. My stitch count is 24, so I'm going to make sure that I still have 24. I mean, I know I will, but we'll just count it just for fun, because it's a good habit to get into. Anytime you add on a new ball to your blankets, you should always be counting your stitches, because it's easy to drop one or add one, and you want to make sure you catch any mistakes as quickly as possible so that you can fix them. So I'm just going through the end of my row here, and I'll show you what it looks like. And then you're basically just going to be repeating this exact step over and over and over until you have finished your blanket. And I've reached my last stitch. Do not forget him. You're going to pull it through and you're done. So now you're just going to continue this. You're going to continue moving back and forth. Make sure all your stitches are always flat and facing upwards, and you're going to keep going back and forth. So there you go.
Step 7, add new yarn.
Okay, so I'm at the part where I'm going to need to add a new ball of yarn. So I have a little bit of yarn left here, so I have enough that I can maneuver and tie a knot with. I have my new ball of yarn started and ready to go. I also have my embroidery thread ready. I have my scissors ready. So what you're going to do, and this is how I add a ball of yarn, you can do it in any variety of ways. All we're going to do is we're going to attach it by tying a knot, as you would tie any knot, and you're going to gently tug it back and forth. Do not pull too tight, because if you do, this yarn will snap, but you want to pull it enough that it's in a nice knot like this. So you're still going to see the little ends. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your embroidery thread, cut a little piece off of it, and you're going to line these little tails on either side of your yarn, and you're just going to tie a knot, a normal knot, on either side of the knot that you just tied, like this. And I like embroidery thread because it's a little bit thicker to use. You're just going to trim off that length, and you're going to trim off a little bit of that tail that you just tied, put it to the side, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Cut a little bit of thread, and see, this is where the little knot is right here. So we're going right on the other side of that knot, and we're going to use our thread. And again, the embroidery thread is much easier to use than your regular sewing thread. I'm just tying a knot, and it's good to use a color that matches, because it's going to just blend into your blanket and you're never going to see it. I'm just going to trim off the length there, and I'm going to trim off that little tail. I'm gonna trim a little bit of this guy off. And then you can choose to give it a little bit of a haircut, which I like to do too, because it helps blend it. So you can kind of trim a little bit around the actual knot itself, like that, so that it makes it more similar to the size of the yarn that you were already with. And I'll cut a little bit of that one off there. So give them a little haircut, like that. And there, you've got your new ball attached. And once you start making your blanket, you're never gonna feel this, you're never gonna notice it. By tying the thread on either side, it gives it a little bit more stability so that you have the ability, you can be able to wash your blanket. It's not gonna fall apart. I don't like the burn method. The burn method, I honestly will just pop itself out if you wash it too many times. So this method is the best method, in my opinion, on how to add a new ball of yarn. So that's how you're gonna do it. And you're just gonna carry on. I've tied my ball of yarn and I'm just gonna carry on making my blanket now. And as you're gonna notice, I'm coming up to my knot right here. There's my knot. And you're never gonna notice that. It's right there. And it's just gonna blend into your blanket. It's gonna give you a lot of stability that you can wash this blanket over and over and it's not gonna fall apart on you. So you're just gonna keep making your blanket, and that's how you're gonna add on any new ball of yarn as you need it.
Step 8, let's do the last row.
Okay, so now I'm at the stage where I'm ready to finish my blanket. I finished my last row. What I want you to make sure is you're gonna go ahead and double check you have enough yarn left. You're gonna measure your yarn. You're gonna make sure you have enough for length of the full width of your blanket, at least 3 widths. So that's 1, 2, 3. You wanna make sure you at least have that much yarn left to finish it in this method. Keep in mind also, there's many ways to finish a blanket. This is just one method. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to your very last stitch. Right now I have a 2-fingered size. You're gonna make it a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna aim for about 4 fingers. I'm going to make my next bunny ear. So I'm still making my next stitch as I normally would. It's a little bit bigger. As you can see, I can put 4 fingers in there. I'm gonna take my first one. He's gonna go over top of the last one that I just made. I'm gonna make another bunny ear. Again, he's a little bit bigger and he's gonna go over top. Now what this is doing is it's gonna start creating the braid that we have on our sides and at the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and make another bunny ear, and we're folding them over top of each other. And the thing to keep in mind too, you're always folding in the direction that you're finishing. So if you ever get confused on which direction, that's how you know. So when you're making your bunny ear, you're going over top and you're folding them like this. You're gonna go ahead and you're gonna make all those bunny ears and you're gonna keep folding them over until you reach the end of your blanket. So I'm still making them taller. You can see I'm pulling it up a little bit longer. So the reason why we do this is so that we can make sure it's not tight. If you continued making bunny ears the same size as before, like the small ones, what's gonna happen is your blanket's gonna start to want to cinch up like this, and you're not gonna have enough movement to finish your blanket properly. So you don't wanna have them too small. So again, the bigger bunny ear, you're gonna fold one over the other, and you're gonna continue doing that to the end of your row. So keep making your bunny ears a little bit bigger, and you're gonna go all the way to the end of your blanket. So however many stitches that is. And remember, you should still be counting your stitches. Make sure you're ending with the same amount that you started with. That's very important. Just like size matters, all the things that I like to mention, they all have a purpose. So I'm almost at the end. I have 2 more stitches left. Let's just get that one done. And where's my last one here? I'm gonna pull that through and fold it over.
Step 9, the last knot.
Okay, so I'm at my very last stitch of my last row of my blanket. All I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut off my yarn. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this tail and I'm gonna put it through my last stitch just like this. And you're just gonna give it a small tug. And all it's gonna do is it's gonna make a small knot on the side. And then what I like to do as well is I like to put it through one more time and tie it in a knot, tighten it up a little bit. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this tail and we're gonna thread it through.
Step 10, let's finish the blanket.
Okay, so now that you've finished off your blanket, you're gonna notice you have a little tail that looks like this at the very start, and you're also gonna have a very similar tail at the very end of your blanket. Now the way that I like to hide it is a very similar process to how we added on our new yarn. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take the tail and you're gonna weave it in a little bit. So you're just gonna weave it in however you can kind of hide the yarn a little bit. Just weave it in a couple little places like this. And then you're gonna take your thread and you're gonna do the same process as before. You're gonna cut off a little bit of it. You're gonna find a little part where you twisted it in, and you're just gonna tie a little knot like that, little double knot. Trim off some of that thread like that. And then you can just trim off some of that tail. So I tucked them in a little bit more. I can cut them off right there. And there you go. So it's tucked in. So you're gonna do the same thing for your very first stitch and your very last stitch. You're gonna thread it through, tuck it in, and fluff it up. You'll never notice that. So that's how you finish it. So that's your last stitch there. And it's all done. So it's fully washable. Everything's done. You can kind of have a little look at it, and we'll post a picture of the final project when we're ready.
And now here's our personal collection of chunky blankets. All puppy approved, of course. Thank you for watching. We'd love to see your creations. Please tag us on your socials. We can't wait to see your beautiful blankets.